Conservation can be venturing into the unknown, right? To chart new places and track species where no one has been before. And Maria Gavrilo, Deputy Director of the Russian Arctic National Park, is just such an intrepid explorer. Her work has helped unveil one of the world's great wildernesses and what lies within the heart of the Arctic, where the Atlantic meets the Pacific. What a wonderful meeting point. So, to hear more of her story of adventure and discovery, please help me welcome Maria Gavrilo. Hi, Maria, how are you?
Hi, thank you. I'm fine. Hello.
Hi, how have you been? Hey, Paul. Oh,
Yeah,
hang on, Paul, you're still on mute.
I'm
Sorry,
un-
mate. Hi, Peter. Sorry for jumping in there. Doing great this morning. Nice to see you. And hello, Maria. I just want to say hello to you, buddy.
Hello, thank you very much so for inviting me. Nice to meet you. I enjoyed yesterday's session. It's really great.
It's going well. We really are the largest biodiversity festival in the world. You know, it's so big, so much energy, and it's lovely to see you, Maria. Every time I see you, I remember us being together in Franz Josef Land.
Yeah, it was
Can't wait to
fantastic.
get back there with you.
Fantastic expedition. Yeah.
All right, I'll leave you to your presentation. I look forward to it, and great to see you. Thanks for joining. Thanks again, Peter.
Yeah.
Take care, Paul.
See you, mate.
Wow, Maria, it sounds like you have lots of adventures to share with us. So I'll hand you the floor now, and it's all yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good evening, good day, whenever you are. I'm Maria Gavrilo. I am ornithologist by training, and I work the whole my life in the Arctic. And I would like to share some personal experience on observing changing Arctic. We started this session with an incredible ecosystem of warm waters, with a high biodiversity, sensitive biodiversity, connected biodiversity, and endangered biodiversity. Now I would like to bring you to other part of the globe and to go to the more harsh environment, more cold water, but still very highly diverse. Let me share my screen. Yeah.
Yes, if you can just select the whole window. Yes, perfect. You're good to go.
Okay, thank you. So I am representing here the Open Ocean Project. With my friends, we established this project several years ago to study and conserve coastal and marine cultural and natural heritage of the Russian Arctic. And I will bring you to the meeting point of two oceans in the very center of the Arctic Ocean. The story started some 30 years ago when I first time got into the high Arctic, just being graduated in the St. Leningrad State University as an ornithologist, and my first field work was high in the Arctic, in the 80 north, on the remote islands, and I spent the whole 5 months there, and I got in love with this area. And we in biologists, we know the phenomenon like imprinting. So I made a fond of this area, and I would like to return. It took like 20 years that I went back to this area and later visited it several times. So during 30 years of observation, I personally can observe how Arctic is changing. The Arctic Ocean is a smallest one. It's only 4% of the entire global world ocean. And if we look from the top, it's really small. It's also the least the least deep. It's the shallowest ocean in the world. It's the maximum depth is only 4 kilometers. It's also the youngest ocean, and the major feature of this water marshes is the ice. Ice is all around the Arctic Ocean, and you can see the satellite picture that it's like a huge ice cap covered the almost entire water body. But now ice is shrinking, as you all know, and it's impacts very much the whole ecosystem. So we can find ice in the sea of different type, of different ages, moving ice, fast ice all around in the sea. Ice is also all around on the earth, on the land. And here you can see the huge ice barrier on the land. And here, if you put attention, here is a small man in front of the huge glacier. But we have also ice under the ground, and even when we see a look at the ground and see this nice pattern with some greenish mosses and some algae and some lichens, that pattern means that there is a ice underground. And these patterns are made by the moving, melting, and freezing ice at the permafrost. So ice shapes the whole environment, the whole ecosystem, and influence and impact dramatically the evolution of all creatures inhabiting Arctic Ocean. And we have not that big diversity in terms of numbers of species in the Arctic as compared to temporal zone or even more to the tropical zone, but we have a number of Arctic endemic species which adopted to this harsh environment, and they cannot survive in any other areas even more suitable for humans. But this high latitudes, this Arctic Ocean, is a home to the ice endemic species like we all know polar bear. That's why I don't put it on a picture, because you all know polar bears. But there are other Arctic species endemic to the Arctic Ocean. This is a bowhead whale, for example, or narwhals. And we have some bird species also endemic to the ice zone. This is the ivory gull, which inhabits only areas with ice where ice presence the whole year. It breeds in the islands surrounded by the ice. It migrates through the ice and they winter in the ice. And we also have other small birds, a little auk, which dependent on a cryopelagic or ice ecosystem, feeding on small zooplankton, Calanus species among ice. So there are very peculiar biodiversity in the Arctic Ocean. Then not many species, but if they adopt to the area, to this climate, they usually has a great numbers, like a little auks, 1 million of little auks in the Arctic Ocean. Well, Arctic Ocean is a small, remote, but it has a connection with other oceans like Pacific Ocean or Atlantic Ocean. And water masses comes from these two gateways, as we call it, from Atlantic. The warm water started as a Gulf Stream, come and enter Arctic Ocean through the Atlantic Gateway. And from Pacific Gateway, the warm water in less number than from Atlantic also come into the Arctic Ocean. And this interaction shape the margins of the Arctic Ocean and bring some warm water wildlife and some nutrients, some warm water, some energy. But in the very center, there's still ice and still low influence of these gateways. The human enters Arctic Ocean also from these two gateways, of course, with warm water, with less ice, and explore Arctic Ocean from the margins. And ice shaping ecosystem, it also protects ecosystem also from the human presence, from the entering and exploring of the from the Arctic Ocean. And that's why in the very center of the Arctic Ocean, right here, equal distance from the Pacific and Atlantic. It was least known and the area where the human penetrated the last time. And you can imagine, even some 100 years ago, there were no islands in this spot. So this is the coast. This is a map of the International Polar Year. Nothing. This is a blank spot. This is a map of famous Fram expedition by Nansen. They went along the coast, then they drift near the pole, and there is a blank spot in the very mid of Siberia. And only in 1913, the Russian expedition of hydrographical expedition of Arctic Ocean, suddenly going along the ice edge, came and saw a new land, the unknown land. And this was the last geographical discovery on the Earth. They discovered land, which they called by that time the land of Emperor Nicholas II, the acting emperor of Russia. And they spot only a small part of the islands and then had to return. And almost 20 years passed between the first discovery and the mapping of the archipelago. It was made in 1932 by 4 people, and they move all around the coastline and put it on a map using their feet and dog sled. This how this huge archipelago size of some size of Netherlands appear on a map. And with the very first exploration, it started exploration of its biological resources. Here we can see the more than 100 skins of the polar bears killed during 2 years of the expedition. It was also some requirement to do this because the expedition was funded by the government, but not fully covered with the money. And they had to return some money back. So they killed polar bear, they sold skins, and they pay for the credits. This is how the sciences always needs some money more than they have. Nowadays, polar bears are fully protected in Russia, and there is no big local hazards to polar bear in this archipelago, which is called Severnaya Zemlya. But now you can see there's islands on the map, but there is some other features on the geographical map. These are the license for exploration and exploitation of oil and gas resources. With retreating of ice to the north, the commercial activity advanced to the Arctic, and Russian Arctic shelf looks like a patchwork carpet covered with a license, and some license go up high up in the Arctic and approaching Severnaya Zemlya. So this remote archipelago is a last discovery. It's least known, and it's became under some danger of blooming and starting and advancing commercial exploration of the Arctic shelf. That was the reason to go there and to study its biodiversity before we could lose this. For me, it passed like 30 years between my first visit to the area and the expedition we organized in 2019. We were more than 20 people renting research vessel, and we went all the way from Arkhangelsk to Severnaya Zemlya. There's some ecological features setting of the area, so it's equally remote from the impact of Atlantic and Pacific. It means that this area is of least impact of global change. You can see the heat transfer decreasing from both gateway coming here. The wildlife coming from Atlantic and Pacific, different populations, different species they have their meeting point in Severnaya Zemlya Archipelago that make this area very interesting for the biologists to study interaction of the subspecies, to clarify the systematics and adaptations. At the same time, the Severnaya Zemlya, you can see it's so there's a gradient of decreasing of warm impact, warm influence. At the same time, Severnaya Zemlya lies in between deep ocean, Arctic basin, and shallow shelf areas. And this contrasting feature between western and eastern part of the archipelago makes it also unique in terms of the diversity, possible diversity of habitats. Here you can see the ice blocked Severnaya Zemlya from the space, and you can imagine why people came in this area that late, and now it's still difficult to access archipelago. It is very harsh climate in the area with the annual temperature like a minus 14 degrees centigrade. It's a more than 100 days polar night, half of the area covered with the glaciers, and ice can be found in the islands all year round. Only small spots of land are free of ice, and we call this ecosystem and landscape periglacial. That means near the glacier. All life is impacted by ice. Can you run, please, the first video? Here we're entering the Matusevich Fjord from the eastern part of the Severnaya Zemlya Archipelago. When I first time came to the area in 1985, this fjord often was covered during the summer by the fast ice, and you could find multi-year fast ice in this area. We were the first vessel entered this area because of the ice retreat. We found it beautiful and still icy waters filled with the icebergs, with the ice and the birds. Okay, thank you. We can go further with the presentation. It's okay?
Perfect.
So we entered area of Severnaya Zemlya and explored all the coast. You can see in this map our landing sites and our route. We explored by foot. We traversed the several or more than dozen of islands by foot. We used some equipment to fix the coastal dynamic and what is happening on the coast via the ice retreat. We search for the small creatures in the water, in the mosses at the first biological survey of the freshwater ecosystem of the islands. And we're even looking for the butterflies and some flying features, and we found some mosquitoes, biting mosquitoes. Actually, non-biting mosquitoes was not a surprise, but we found the larvae of black fly the first time for this high latitude. And the most extensive program was the study of the coastal ecosystem. We did CTD casts, we surveyed zooplankton and zoobenthos, and the most incredible work was done by our divers. We have a small team of divers, and they dived in the water below with the temperature below the zero in the vicinity of the icebergs and the ice edge, and they found incredible wildlife beneath the ice. It was not easy task to make all these plans and all these programs working at the same time, but we had an incredibly good team, and we agreed about our preferences, and we did incredible, and we obtained incredible results. So I would like to tell about our discovery of the coastal wildlife. Before we went there, it was the common knowledge that the ice is too harsh in the archipelago, and the ice suppressed the coastal life. And the scoring action of ice, of fast ice and iceberg, they make the littoral zone, the shallow coastal zone, like a dead without any megabenthos. And it was assumed that the coastal zone is very poor in the area. But we found the high biodiversity and high biomasses in all places when our divers went under the water. We found the biggest discovery was that we found that kelps in these cold waters, which temperature doesn't go above the zero. We found the laminaria and the red algae and brown algae and some green algae all over the places, all over the coast of Severnaya Zemlya. And this rich area of kelps went a little bit to the deep, not in the very first meters, but at the depths of the 5, 10, 20 meters, we found this rich biodiversity like this. Of course, it's not that high-standing kelps in southern parts, but it's still, for the 80-degree north, it's quite a rich biodiversity. Even in the area most impacted by icebergs, we saw the deep throws on the bottom. Even there are some kelp individuals survived in this harsh environment. And we found also interesting thing that this coring action of ice doesn't work only as a disturbance for the whole ecosystem. Some organisms can benefit from this coring action of ice, like a sea urchin. So they're hunting for the disturbed mussels. The mussels are disturbed by the icebergs, and the sea urchin make benefit of this already prepared food for them. We also find nice anemones, sea anemones, and other creatures. And of course, some coastal fishes adopted to the cold water were found there. And in other interesting thing that we found the spawning area for the polar cod. Polar cod is the key species for the entire marine ecosystem of the high Arctic. And there are not many spawning grounds known for this animal. And we found this in the coastal water of Severnaya Zemlya. And of course, there were some top predators looking for the polar cod. And we found a healthy population of ice seals, like this bird seal, and also plenty of ringed seals. And of course, the predator for the seals is the top predator, polar bears. And all people noted that the polar bears on Severnaya Zemlya were much more healthy than we observe on the marginal seas, like in Barents Sea, in the northern Barents Sea. The polar bear were much in a much better condition. Since we don't have much time, I pass this video and a couple of words about the birds. The influence of the Atlantic is decreasing to Severnaya Zemlya, and this is very well pronounced in the bird life. This is a number of species in Svalbard, in the Barents Sea, decreasing dramatically to the going to the east. In Severnaya Zemlya has much fewer species than Svalbard, and the same with abundance and the biomasses. And we lack species of birds like a thick-billed murre or common eider, which the common thick-billed murre hunting for the fish in the water column. In this kind of species lack in Severnaya Zemlya because of the less productive ecosystem. This was the picture of the mid-20th century. We lack many species. You can see the black spots. And the high Arctic profile of Severnaya Zemlya pronounced with the high abundance of ivory gull, which has dependent species, in high numbers of little auks. This is a major player on the bird life in this area. I returned to my place where I started the exploration of Severnaya Zemlya 30 years ago. I found the hut I left. I was living 30 years ago, but the hut was destroyed but the seabirds in the area were in place, and they were healthy, and the glaucous gull colony was still in place, and the population is doing well. We found new species for the Severnaya Zemlya Archipelago, like the sabine gull, which was only vagrant in the 50 years ago. And we found the most interesting thing that we found common eider, which had a gap in the breeding grounds because of the lack of the literal food. Now we observed these kelps, and now ice decreasing, and eiders get access to the food and explore and inhabit and settle on the islands. And we found migration stopover for the red phalaropes. 100,000 of red phalaropes come to Severnaya Zemlya to feed on small zooplankton on their migration. But the ivory gull, they ice-dependent species, they're not doing very well in all places. In some places, they cannot breed because of ice retreat, even in Severnaya Zemlya. But at the very northern top, they still have their thriving colonies. And now it's a current picture, and we found new species come to the area, especially in the end of the summer when the ice retreat and the food is made available for the birds. There are new species, new breeding species, high abundance, so the ecosystem is changing, rapidly changing. And the major conclusion of our very brief expedition that Severnaya Zemlya, with its insular shelf, is integrated, pristine ecosystem, and it should be used as a high Arctic etalon for the Arctic ecosystem and scientific polygon, remote from the direct impact of the direct impact from the human activity. And scientists during several projects evaluating the most valuable areas in the Arctic Ocean, all projects agree that the area of Severnaya Zemlya here is of high importance to preserve Arctic biodiversity in a Russian scale and also in the international scale for the Arctic Ocean as a whole. In this area of Severnaya Zemlya, along with other hard Arctic archipelagos, they meet UNESCO World Heritage Convention criteria of outstanding universal value. And we hope that this area will get the full protection and the further will be a part of the World Natural Heritage. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you for all my colleagues who were with me during my several expeditions to Severnaya Zemlya. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Maria. It's been really insightful, and to know that there's still so much biodiversity up north, so far north. It's truly incredible. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. Stay safe.
Yeah.
Oh, here's Paul to say a few words.
Just to say thanks, Maria, bringing it to life. And you're dead right, Peter, biodiversity. But what happens in the Arctic, in my experience, is you don't see much and you're wondering where it is. So you stick with Maria and she brings it all to life. She makes the biodiversity happen.
Thank you very much, Paul. And I would like to thank Pristine Season and Rick Sala for the support of this expedition. Thank you very much.
Will do. Thanks again, Maria. Brilliant to share some Arctic sense with you. Just what we needed.